Hello there, and welcome to Let's Make a Health Connection, your local Health Connect podcast series in Vancouver, Washington. In this series, we interview and showcase the many healthcare providers and resources that are featured on our website, localhealthconnect.com. For those of you who don't know us yet, Local Health Connect is a hub where our community can easily search local resources and connect with providers for mind, body, and spirit health. Thanks for listening today. I'm Jennifer Barber, licensed clinical social worker in Washington and Oregon, and I'm happy to be part of our community of providers. Hi, everybody. Today we're talking to Dr. Kathy Soverow. She has a doctorate in lifestyle medicine, which is an evidence-based profession that integrates her specialties in plant-based nutrition, physical fitness, quality sleep, social and emotional intelligence, and resiliency. The essence of her coaching psychology practice is to help clients build an optimal foundation of health, wellness, and overall well-being that allows all other endeavors to flourish. Including meeting clients. She meets clients where they are, playing to their strengths while integrating her skill set with an understanding that we are wired to thrive. Kathy, I love that. Hi, Dr. Kathy Soverow. How are you today?
I'm terrific, and thank you for having me on, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Let's just jump in and let's hear a little bit about what your practice is, what you have to offer the community. My understanding is that you've practiced cognitive behavioral therapy for decades, but this is a little different. What led you to transition to coaching psychology?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have zigzagged professionally through my life, and it's always been in the behavioral sciences. So, a couple of lifetimes ago, I was an audiologist, speech pathologist, and then I went into counseling psychology and got really interested in coaching behavioral therapy and did that for a really long time. And, I deal with the whole of person approach. So I lived my life that way, and so I wanted to work with people that way. So that's why I have an exercise physiology background, counseling background, nutrition background, quality of sleep, et cetera, and resiliency, stress management, of course. So because I live my life that way, I want to work that way. And so that's why I got the skill set that I did to work with people. And why I transitioned from therapy to coaching psychology is that, there's a razor-thin difference between it. One is that I would be the total expert, but still kind of working in the same way. But coaching psychology is that the client guides me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of follow the client and then use great communication skills to let them hear themselves and help them, use their strengths to be motivated and work through challenges and achieve what they want to achieve. I guess that's how I would describe it.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. You have stated that coaching psychology is not about fixing or helping. How does it differ? Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I guess my Buddhist readings would integrate into this as how I make the difference between fixing and helping. So when I was a cognitive behavioral therapist, I always thought of myself as working collaboratively with my clients, but kind of having my expert hat on, my fixing hat on, my helping hat on, and thinking that they needed me, more than anything. And so what I do in coaching psychology is really stay away from that. I don't know, so I have to ask a lot of questions. I bear witness to what they're telling me, and then I compassionately act in collaborating with them to facilitate strategies and solutions. So I don't fix and I don't help because they're fixing and helping themselves, and I'm just kind of supporting them. I'm walking side by side with them by using my skills to collaborate with them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think what might be even more helpful is if you could explain, like, if somebody were to come in to see you for the first time, and they had only ever seen a cognitive behavioral therapist, they've never seen a coach before. If they
Yeah.
come to see you for the first time, how are they going to feel that that experience is a bit different?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think at first they wouldn't feel
Mm-hmm.
that it's any different because we would be in a discovery mode of just learning about why they got in touch with me in the first place
Yeah.
and who I am. So we would be doing this kind of dance of getting to know each other, so creating the relationship
Mm-hmm.
and setting the foundation. So that would seem very similar. And then where it would take a bit of a change is me saying to them, what is your vision for what you want to accomplish over the next several months, if that's how long we work together? And how would you feel, what are your intentions to get there? So I would want to dig a little bit deeper with them and just asking them those questions so that they can reflect upon it and we can get to know a little bit more. So I think for me, that's how I see it differently. I'm not sure they would see it that differently. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would just be asking, I would be asking things of them in a different way than I would if I were in playing the therapist role.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What do you want people to understand about lifestyle medicine? I'm wondering, this is a fairly new term, is it not?
It is.
To get a doctorate
Yeah.
in lifestyle medicine. I don't know that, well, I certainly haven't heard much about this. I don't know that the majority of the people have. And so, what do you want people to understand about that term?
That's a great question, too, because I belong to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It's an organization that is fairly new itself. And what we realized a couple of decades ago is that chronic illness was taking over: hypertension, heart disease, prediabetes, diabetes, things of this nature, where it wasn't acute. People weren't coming in to get biomedical help, like they have a heart attack or they're in a car accident or something like that. But they actually, in the way that they're living their lives, have an effect upon their health, wellness, and quality of life. And that's what lifestyle medicine is. And I want people to understand that they have a great deal of control over their health and well-being. And it's the choices that they make in how they eat, what they eat, how they move their bodies, the quality of sleep that they get, how resilient they are in the face of stress, because life is stressful. But if we didn't have stress, we wouldn't be alive. So understanding the psychophysical nature of that and realizing that, hey, you know what? I really am in control of my health. And then, of course, there are going to be things that happen to us that genetic factors come into play that we don't have control over. And the biomedical field is just fantastic to go hand in hand with lifestyle medicine. So that's what I want people to understand, that it's a hand in glove, two professions working together. And I think that we're starting to see that in medical centers and hospitals around the world.
So I know that you wear several hats, and one of your hats is as a researcher.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we might be able to bring some of that into our discussion today.
Sure.
Researching chronic illness, researching resiliency, moral courage. And I'm wondering what kind of research link, let's talk about linking chronic illness to this idea of moral courage and resiliency.
Yeah. The research in chronic illness is so vital in this day and age because we've got to understand, what people are doing and what their behaviors are like that are leading them to this. And one of the things that I have a great deal of experience and interest in is the pre-diabetes stage of diabetes. I mean, diabetes gets so much attention, as it should, but pre-diabetes is the place that when people are diagnosed with it, it's kind of a misnomer because people say, well, I don't have diabetes yet. Well, they've probably been 10 years into a path that's not looking really good for them in terms of blood sugar. And so what I researched was using coaching psychology to help people reduce their blood glucose, reduce their blood pressure, reduce those biometrics, so that they can get a handle on prediabetes. I'm not sure we can absolutely reverse it, but I know we can reduce it significantly so that they're in a healthy range for the rest of their life. Because when you go beyond prediabetes and get into the diabetes stage, then you're into a heck of a lot of comorbidities. And we're in a global pandemic right now, and it's teaching us lots about how viruses can be so damaging to people that have comorbidities already and take them into, more difficult health stages. And so that's where my research has been. And I found some really significant changes when people realize, it makes me smile, because when people realize they have prediabetes and you start working with them like that, they really want to change it. They're like, oh, all I have to do is know a little bit about this, and then I can get a handle on it. And they don't have to eat a specific way. There's a whole world of ways that they can eat. And so when they realize that the choices are really great, then they get kind of motivated and realize that it isn't that big a challenge for them to make some behavioral changes.
And what about that moral courage and resiliency? Can you describe a little bit of even your definition of moral courage?
Yeah, and to define moral courage, I have to step back and define what leads to it. Moral distress and moral injury is what happens when we get so overly stressed about something. It can be anything. Let's take, for instance, the healthcare world and nurses and doctors and social workers and therapists who are so overwhelmed with working with people in this global pandemic that moral injury and distress comes in because they're fatigued, they're understaffed, overworked, they're getting burned out, they don't feel like they have enough family time. And so when they realize that, we've got to really get them to a point where they say, I got to back off and give myself some time to learn real mind-body techniques or lifestyle techniques, mind-body techniques like breathing deeply so that you can change your heart rate, so that you can feel more self-regulated, that will lead you to moral courage. And that moral courage is that I'm really passionate and excited about what I'm doing at home, at work, and in my play life. I'm not burned out. I'm really happy about what I do. And resiliency and moral courage are linked in that way, because when we learn these practices and these tools, we can avoid moral injury and distress and live in that moral courage and resiliency world where it doesn't really matter what the challenge is, because we're going to have challenges every time we turn around. It's how we handle that and the tools that we use to self-regulate ourselves so that we can move through that. As Robert Frost said, the only way out is through. And so people learn this, and then they become more resilient. And when you're more resilient, you're healthier. Your wellness is in a really good place, and the quality of life just skyrockets.
Thank you for describing that. I think that's beautiful, and really a shout out to all of the frontline medical workers that are out there right now, just hunkering down and doing this really hard work. I also wanted to just ask you, bringing people into your practice and helping them or walking alongside them when they identify that there are certain behaviors maybe that they have been living with and utilizing during their life that might not be working anymore. They're not serving a purpose, or they're not helping with maintaining health and happiness. And so it's part of your practice to be able to identify what those behaviors are and then to walk alongside and create or envision new behaviors. And can you walk us through what that might look like?
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things, and it comes from my cognitive behavioral background, is, in order to change anything, you've got to measure and manage it, right? So you've got to figure out ways. First, you identify the change you want to make, and you identify the motivating factors for why you want to make that change. And then you look at the challenges that you face when making that change. And what this is doing is it's giving you a vision of this whole thing, that it's not out of grasp, that it's within your grasp. And so we get through that through discovery, and we talk about that. And then we talk about ways that we're going to measure from week to week what they do so that they stay really motivated to do things, and then how they're going to measure that. For instance, let's go back to the prediabetes. One of the things that's really easy is you just pick a biometric like, say, blood sugar, and you get these really easy little blood glucose kits, and every week you just take a finger prick. And so from week to week, you can see what your blood glucose is doing while you're making nutritional changes. And you don't have to make big nutritional changes, but little bitty changes at a time. For instance, if somebody is eating a lot of dairy in their diet and they want to make a change there, then I'll say, okay, so you drink milk. Can you go a week? Can you go 5 days even without drinking any milk? And then we see how you feel. And you've marked that on your calendar. And they go, okay, I'll try that. And then the next week they come back and they go, you know what, that wasn't really hard at all. I think I'll go another week without doing that. Let me see what I can do to, instead of milk, let me see what I can substitute in. And so it's always having a vision for what you want to change and how the strategies that you're going to put in place to do that, and then to measure it so that you're always actively involved in your own behavioral change. You're doing something constantly to make that change so that therefore you can then sustain it.
Got it.
So, and I oftentimes tell people, if it's about weight management, we do all kinds of different things with that. Let's just put your scale. If you have a body scale, let's put that in the closet for a little bit, because it's not telling you anything. I don't know what your lean body mass is. I don't know what your percent body fat is. It's just giving me your body weight. So let's just put that in the closet. And then if you still want to take it like every month or so, do it. Choose a day once a month and see what your body weight is. And then we go on from there. So, it's always up to them what they want to do.
Great. Would you say that the majority of the people you work with, that there is a main focus on nutrition, or are there people coming to see you outside of nutrition?
Outside of nutrition, I think it's all of it, because when they realize that it's the whole of person that I'm dealing with, we start with the thing that's most top of mind for them. And a lot of times that is nutrition, because a lot of times it's about weight management for them. So we'll say, okay, so nutritionally what you want to do. So I do this thing where I send every client a wheel. It's kind of a wellness wheel that I created in the different aspects of their life. And then next to it is a measuring tool of level of confidence. And I have them circle, what's your level of confidence that you want to change something nutritionally, something professionally, something intellectually, something socially. And they fill that out. And then we look at it and say, okay, so what do you want to start with? And most of the time they'll start with nutrition. And then we'll go into fitness and movement. And a lot of times stress is, just integrates in with that. So then they start realizing that their nutrition has a lot to do with their stress or their movement. So they start realizing how the whole puzzle fits together. And we're dealing with all of those areas that make them who they are.
Wonderful. So Kathy, if somebody's listening to this podcast right now and they're thinking, wow, Dr. Soverow really knows what she's talking about, I think I want to get in touch with her and start working with her, how might they go about finding you? Where do you practice? Let's share a little bit of your contact info, if you don't mind.
Perfect. I am a telehealth practitioner. So I've got, I can do Zoom, I can do Doxy. There are lots of ways that I can get on video conferences that I send them the link. But they get in touch with me by calling me first, 818-581-5869. And then they can also get in touch with me via email, which is Dr. Kathy Soverow, and it's capital DR, period, capital K, ATHY, capital S as in Sam, period, capital S as in Sam, O, V as in Victory, ER, OW, at ProtonMail, PROTONMAIL.com. So they can get in touch with me by email or phone, and then I send them information, and then we can get started.
Great. And we'll have all that information in the show notes. So anybody finding this podcast, at the tail end of it, they'll see those notes at the bottom. So we'll get people directed your way. So we're running.
Great.
Thank you. We're running toward the end of our interview here. I'm wondering if there's anything that you are working on right now that you're wanting people to know, if there's any other bits of information you'd like to share about yourself that people might be interested in.
Yeah, I'm getting really interested and deeply involved in researching moral courage and resiliency. So if people hear me and keep looking at me on the site, stay in touch, because when the research project starts, maybe within the next 5 to 6 months or so, maybe longer, I'll be looking for research participants. And so that's what I would like for them to know, because especially in this time, the times in which we are living, I want people to understand that, it could look dark, but there's just so much positive, and they've got it within themselves. And so research will help show how human beings can be resilient through such times.
I love it. Dr. Soverow, thank you so much for taking this time with us today and just being part of this community of providers so that people can find you when they're ready. I love what you say. There's an understanding that we are all wired to thrive, and sometimes we just need a little coaching, like what you're doing right now, somebody to walk right next to us to show us that, we can thrive. And so I want to say thank you for doing the work that you do.
Yes, and thank you for your work, and thank you for having me today, Jennifer.
Awesome. We'll have you back. Thanks so much, Kathy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you again for listening to Let's Make a Health Connection. Find us on the interwebs at localhealthconnect.com. Also search for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links and show notes for this interview are available on our podcast page. I really enjoy putting these interviews together, and I hope you made a health connection. We'll talk again next time.
Let's Make a Health Connection, copyright 2022, all rights reserved, is the exclusive property of MBS Therapy, LLC, a Washington-based company. Local Health Connect is inclusive and does not endorse any political or religious group. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time on localhealthconnect.com.